Oh, it's time for another edition of the Daily Racing Form Weekend Preview. I'm Gino Buccola, alongside our guest for the first segment this week, Pete Rotundo, the VP of Racing and Wagering from First Bet and First Racing. And Pete, we have a huge weekend. It's one of the biggest days of the year over at Gulfstream Park. So we had to discuss the big festivities with you. Oh, what do we got Saturday? 14 races up for grabs, 10 stakes races up for grabs, pick fives all over the place. And one thing that we as bettors love what you're doing over at First Racing, you're creating wagers and you're listening to the bettors. There's wagers structured with lower takeout, which means less money is going to be taken out of our wagers. There's wagers structured with no computer-assisted wagering, which means if you're a smaller bettor, you feel like you have more of a chance. Just wanted to applaud what you guys are doing over there, Pete.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, we're excited. It's going to be a big Saturday. The Curlin Florida Derby going off at 6:50 Eastern. And I just wanted to plug it in your calendar. You can watch it on CNBC or Peacock. NBC Sports will be doing a live broadcast. So 6:50 for the Florida Derby.
And you'll see horses that will be trying to qualify for the Kentucky Derby and for the Kentucky Oaks with points coming up this weekend. And you and I were just going back and forth a little bit about March Madness. We were on the opposite sides of that tight game last night with Texas Tech and with Arkansas. But we were reminded a lot of March Madness with the Kentucky Derby because you and I are going to look out at Gulfstream Park. That's sort of like the Florida, like the South region, right? The qualifiers, and we'll get these regional qualifiers all over.
You got the top. Look, the first two finishers of this Florida Derby will qualify for the Kentucky Derby. So this is it's a big race.
Here's a look at the Derby Watch. Each week, David Aragona, the man who makes the morning line odds for the New York races, he sets what he thinks the odds would be for the horses in the top 20. And this is what they have right now. And it's going to be a huge weekend, Pete, because we have in this race alone, Sovereignty and Tappan Street and Madacat Road. So 3 of the top 20 we're going to be talking about over at Oaklawn Park. Throw in Cole Battle and Sandman into the mix. So we're going to be looking at least 5 of the top 20 horses right now running this week. And there's going to be a lot of shape being taken between Gulfstream Park and over at Oaklawn.
Yeah, 100%. And then, next week you have 3 more final sort of final preps in New York and California and in Kentucky. So this is it. This is like we are in March Madness for horse racing.
Yep. Now we're into like the Elite 8-ish time period. We're going to have a lot happening over the next couple of weeks, and it'll lead us right into that championship day, which will be Kentucky Derby Saturday. So, Pete, we can talk now about this race in particular, because as we get into racing this time of the year with horses that already have qualified, that's also a kind of a different conversation, right? Because the horse to beat in this race is Sovereignty, and he's one of the top horses of this group right now. But Sovereignty was an impressive winner of the Fountain of Youth. He kind of got his points that day. He doesn't really need points as much as some of the other horses in here do. So you kind of think about that a little late in this race. If it's close, if it's tight, a horse like Tappan Street, I think we're going with, or Tappan Street will probably need those points a little more. Disruptor has no points. So that's also something in the back of our minds we want to think about when we're looking at these races. Who has the qualifying points necessary and who might not need to win these races quite as much?
Yeah, well, exactly. This is a $1 million race. Obviously, big money on the line. But the idea is you want to peak the first Saturday in May.
Exactly.
So Sovereignty doesn't need to be 100% here, right? I mean, if he runs second or third, shows a good showing, he's still in the Kentucky Derby. And that's the one you want to win. That's where all the glory is. So, to your point, I think, he should run well, but he doesn't need to win.
What we want to do for this segment is show some of the wagers and how we might be wagering on the Florida Derby, because that's the key, right? We can do all of our handicapping, we can prep, but if you don't really know how to make the correct wagers or make the most out of your opinion, you're going to be kind of scratching your head a lot in this sport, because it's really easy to lose. We can find lots of ways to lose, but we want to make sure when we're right, we're able to capitalize. So let's talk about your opinion, Pete, and how you wanted to play it. You're going to use the 1, 4, and the 9 on top. So you have kind of like what we're talking about. You don't have Sovereignty in the top spot, but you have him in the second, third, and fourth spot. So this is a superfecta where you're trying to pick the winners, the horses that come in first, second, third, and fourth in one race. So not quite like a parlay. This is like picking the horses 1, 2, 3, and 4 in the same race. Talk to us a little bit about your bet.
Yeah, so that's it. I mean, you got to run one, two, three, four, first, second, third, fourth, but you could use multiple horses in each leg.
Yep.
So in my case, I'm using number 1, 4, and 9. One of those has to win, right? And then for the second slot, 1, 8, 9, or 10, one of them have to run second. And then 1, 5, 8, 9, 10, one of those runs third, and 1, 5, 8, 9, 10, one of them runs fourth. For a 50-cent investment, it costs $42. The key for me is Sovereignty, the 10, again, the big favorite. Uh, Looking to try to fade him a bit, right? Get him in the money. Doesn't need to win, like we just talked about, to get to the Derby. I think he's a very nice horse, but again, he's pointing to the first Saturday in May. This is just a stepping stone, right? This is like a team
Yep.
who's already clinched the playoffs and
Yep.
they're in that last race. Doesn't they? You want to see them show some, still in one piece, but they don't need to be there all the way.
Exactly. And what's key about the way that you've structured this is the favorite you've put in the second, third, and fourth spot. So
Right.
if you win this thing, it's going to pay pretty well because you're beating the favorite in the first spot. And really, one of the keys to your wager is throwing the 1 in, right? Talk to us a little bit about why you like the 1 Neo Equus.
Yeah, Neo Equus is trained by Safi Joseph, the #1 trainer here at Gulfstream. He's ridden by his go-to man, Edgar Zayas. He's got the inside post. Again, think about it. It's a race, right? I don't care what you're racing, horses, cars. The fastest way around is the inside. He has
Mm-hmm.
speed, which means he likes to go to the lead. There are other horses who have speed, but then I don't believe they're going to go after this one because they don't think he's good enough, right? So the idea is you have great trainer, good owners, great jockey, right to the front. He might get a nice, easy pace and hold on for a piece. Hopefully, if it gets crazy, he could maybe go wire to wire. So I put him in all the holes. And then sort of the wild card in the race for me is number 4, Disruptor. Picture
Sure.
this horse has only run 2 races, both going short distances. Now he's going long. He's trained by the best, Todd Pletcher, owned by Mike Rapoli, who won this race the last 2 years. Obviously very dangerous, but he's stepping up in class, like he's stepping up to the big leagues. Can he
Yep.
do it? We don't know. Only putting him in the front. So, like, in other words, on the top. If he's right, he could win. But if he's not, maybe he's not good enough and he finishes off the board. So that's the angle we're going for.
We got the Ricky Bobby there. If you're not first, you're last angle going on
Exactly.
with the Disruptor. So that's what's key about betting on the races, right? You have to have an approach. And it's like anything, you want to make sure you've got your game plan. And you're going to be right, you're going to be wrong. But if you don't go into it with a game plan, you're going to be hemming and hawing. You're going to be going back and forth. So I think you always want to come into it with the plan. Pete has a wager there where if it were to come like Neo Equus and then Tapon Street and then Matticat Road. I mean, Pete could be looking at a really nice score if things were to play out in the particular way that he wants. So Pete's got a Florida Derby best bet. It's a 50-cent super. I threw in a trifecta where I went with the 9 and the 10. I think it's just going to be a big effort from Tapon Street, who you got on the top spot too, right? So we both have in that first spot. In the second spot, I went 2, 9, and 10. The horse who I think is a little bit interesting, I threw in Cool Intentions. I really liked what he was doing earlier in the year. And then in the Mucho Macho Man, he just didn't really fire that day. I don't know if he's good enough to win the race, Pete, but I think he might be good enough to pass some of these horses in here. That's why I put him in the second and the third spot. And then in the third spot, I'll go a little bit deeper. What I'm probably going to do, Pete, is also throw in your 1 in the third spot too, at least if he's showing some speed and is able to hang on for a slice. So you put my trifecta together, that one up on the board, cost you $16, and you can make that wager there. And, that's a way to get a little bit of action in the Florida Derby.
Yeah.
So there's different ways we can play, right? We can bet pick 5s, which will go like a parlay, take you into races leading into the Florida Derby, or we can bet races individually. So that's what's been crazy about you and I growing up in this sport, Pete. 20, 30 years ago, there weren't as many ways to wager.
Right.
Now, like, we can wager in any different way on these things.
Yeah. Oh my God. There's so many options. In the late pick 5, the last 5 races at Gulfstream, it's a $2 million estimated pool. So there should be $2 million in the pool that will get split up among the winning tickets. So, if you're doing the homework, you got to take a shot with that. But again, it all comes down to the Florida Derby, and we're ready for it.
Pete, we love chatting with you. We're going to have to pick your brain again when we have another big day over at Gulfstream. Next week, it's Santa Anita, so we'll be focusing on Santa Anita Derby there. Thank you so much for everything. We're going to be playing along, and we hope you have an awesome Saturday.
You too, Gino. Thanks, guys.
We'll be right back, folks, and we'll head on over to Oaklawn Park.